Welcome back to the Snap. Michael Heaver here, of course, alongside my co-host Patrick O'Flynn. Patrick, first of all, how are you?
Yeah, very well. Just back from the gym, which was punishing, but glad to have done it.
Good stuff. Well, look, some really big numbers in terms of illegal migrant boat crossings. Yesterday actually saw the new record single daily number, which was 482 people, nearly 500 people coming across via that extremely dangerous route. To put into perspective, Patrick, back in 2018, it was 297 people coming across via small boats across the channel for the entire year. We're now looking at nearly 500 in a single day, over 10,000 already for 2021. Patrick, this just continues to spiral out of control, or even more out of control, I should say.
Yes, what we're looking at here is a catastrophic government failure. And astonishingly, they're not being held to account by either the official opposition or, so far as I can see, anyone in the House of Commons. No Westminster Party, no MPs, complete free ride for the government on this issue, because as we know, the opposition parties to the left of the Tories don't care about stopping illegal immigration. Their only beef is that there should be easier, free, so-called safe routes. They don't really believe in border control at all. But it's becoming more and more obvious, perhaps, that neither does Boris Johnson. And I do think out there among the various parts of the Tory voting coalition, particularly people who switched over in the red wall seats, people are aghast and there's mounting anger about this. I do think Tory High Command is aware of it, but at the moment they have no practical solution they're prepared to embrace.
Yeah, I mean, Nigel Farage, of course, has been highlighting this consistently, of course, now on his GB News show. And he's predicting today that it's going to get much worse. And sadly, Patrick, just going over the numbers quickly again, in terms of 2021, we're really looking at about 10,200 people. 2020, it was 8,417 for the entire year. 2019, it was 1,850. And 2018, it was less, or fewer, I should say, than 300 people. So it just shows you the surge in numbers. And, you know, if things keep going the way they are at the moment, you can expect, I guess, that 482 daily record to be broken again and again this year.
Yeah, it's like watching the Irregular Migration Olympics, isn't it? With world records being set practically every few days. And I think we're looking at an accelerated upward number as this route becomes more and more advertised as being the way in. I think the French probably stop about half the boats setting off, but that really only means that if you're a would-be irregular entrant to Britain, you probably need to fork out to have two goes, which isn't much of a deterrent at all. And while we have our own border force, obviously buttressed by the RNLI, actually bringing people ashore to claim asylum, 95% will never leave, even if they don't have well-grounded claim for being persecuted in their home country. It's a jackpot. Until we embrace offshore processing, until we do a deal with another country, perhaps an African country, to host our processing centres, and until the people coming across know they will not set foot on the British mainland, this is going to be more and more the main way in which irregular, unlawful entry to the United Kingdom happens. It so happens it's a nightmare for the government because it's so obvious, it's out there, it's in the open, and it is causing an outcry. And yes, Nigel Farage is the one that the government is scared of, even though he doesn't have a political party. But we need political parties like, for instance, Reform, to step up to the plate on this issue now, and not to think it's all a bit rough and they don't want to go there. I think while Reform in particular doesn't want to talk about stopping illegal immigrants, who do people say they're going to vote for? How does it show up in opinion polls? And how does the government get under pressure to bring this to an end?
And meanwhile, when we look at what's actually going on in terms of local by-elections, Patrick, you see a Conservative Party that is still making gains from Labour. Just last week in Bassetlaw, Conservatives gaining a seat from Labour. Basildon in Essex, Conservatives gaining a council seat. from Labour. The Lib Dems gaining 2 seats from the Conservatives in Harrogate and in Norfolk. But interestingly, in all 4 of those electoral contests across the country, the Labour vote is down.
Yeah, isn't it interesting that in the more working class, I suppose you would say, red wall areas, not just in the North and the Midlands, but as you say, in Basildon too, it's the Conservatives making gains. In the somewhat leafier areas, you mentioned a ward in Harrogate and South Norfolk too, you have a little Lib Dem surge going on, and Labour is being squeezed out of the story. Labour is doing badly everywhere. In the more middle class leafy places, it seems to be the Lib Dems on a slight roll. In the working class places, it's still the Tories marmalising the Labour vote. And when you look at Keir Starmer again week to week, is it any wonder? You know, he still hasn't admitted he got it terribly wrong on July the 19th when he said we were heading for 100,000 cases a day, and appeared to be relishing the idea of sliding back into a COVID lockdown. Completely wrong about that. Waffling on about his green agenda with no actual definition. I mean, people on the Tory side, one thing they think about Boris Johnson is probably that he's gone too far on the green agenda, and Keir Starmer saying he hasn't gone far enough. I don't think Starmer and Labour are appealing to anyone at the moment.
Meanwhile, Patrick, what are you making of this, well, I mean, hounding really, of pensioners, the so-called grace period for over 75s to cough up and pay the licence fee now? There's been reported there are still 260,000 pensioners still yet to pay. National Audit Office estimates the BBC has lost £50 million in the last year alone due to people failing to pay the licence fee. We also know from the numbers that in the past 12 months, the number of licence fees has gone down by 700,000, down 1 million licence fees over the past 2 years. Patrick, when you look at the data out there, it's clear now majority of Brits don't think there should be a BBC licence fee. They think the BBC should be funded for advertising or subscription, stand on its own 2 feet. What do you make of the fact that you're now going to see pensioners hassled to cough up money for a BBC licence fee that doesn't have mass public support anymore?
I think it's a very delicate issue for the BBC, and they're using, I suppose one would say, intimidation now. I don't think there have been, certainly not significant numbers of actual prosecutions for over 75s refusing to buy a television licence, but people of that generation tend to be very law-abiding, and also they're liable to worry about the idea of inspectors knocking on their door, threats of prosecutions. So, you know, I quite admire the refuseniks who are saying bring it on, and looking forward to being dragged down the magistrates' court, having their say. And that could very easily turn into a PR nightmare for the BBC.
Yeah, well, as ever, guys, we'll keep on these stories, keep bringing you all the very latest here on The Snap. So make sure you hit subscribe and the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and myself and Patrick will be back soon. Cheers, guys.
Take care, folks.